All right, and welcome back to another Conquest Corner. On this episode, we're going to get into something I've been wanting to do for a bit, but have both been wanting to review it more, slash just a little bit too busy to get to it, and that's to start discussing Sorcerer Kings. So, for anyone who is new to any of this, I've been making various content related to Conquest, Last Argument of Kings from Parabellum Games, and lately I've been doing related to all the different updates they did last month. As a bad time of recording of this, about exactly 1 month ago. And they also gave us the rules for Sorcerer Kings, which I believe drop end of next month, end of April or in April, if memory serves. Might be earlier April. I don't remember the exact time frame, but I know it's in April. But when they drop. So they gave us the rules. I want to start discussing them. Now, um, when there's several of us, it's one thing to sit and talk for hours on end. But when it's just me, I can't do that. So I was trying to think through what's the best way to do this. And there's no great way to tackle it. I think what makes the most sense, and what I want to do for this video, is to go through essentially the army rules and exactly what that means. Now, some of the context is going to be lost because we're not going to be looking through all the units right now. We'll discuss the parts that are needed, but overall, looking at the units doesn't do you any good unless you know the sort of buffs and bonuses you can give to them. It's easier to judge some of the idea that what we're talking about is pretty good without knowing who exactly it applies to or what they could do with it, rather than the reverse of looking at a unit saying, oh, there's a little bit lacking. Oh, that's because there's these cool things that they can get on them as well. So I think this is a little bit a better way to do this. Keep in mind, if you have an interest in picking up, say, this faction or anything else for Conquest, we do have, in the show notes beneath here, we do have a discount code for you. It saves you 10% on your purchases, helps out the show as well. So if you're looking to pick some stuff up, you get to save some money, which is really good for all of us. The code is Terrain Kickers. Beneath is also a link that you can click on so you can go straight to it. You can get into the web store and you can put any pre-orders for, say, guys like this. One thing I am curious about, so please do leave it in the comments below. If you're watching this, is this an army that you're picking up? Is this an army that you're waiting on? Do you not like them? Is there something else that you want? Like what's bringing you to them? What's keeping you away from them? Or what is it that you're really waiting for? So without much further ado, I do want to get into this. So, like I said, for this video, the goal is we're going to talk army rules, which means we're going to be talking mostly rituals. That's my focus of this one, is just to go through the rituals. Now, I don't want to just sit here and reread this to you. However, the synopsis of this is not much different than the reading of it. So, overall, your character stands that are wizards, which is all of your character stands except the Radar, I think. I'm going to say right now, I'm going to mispronounce these names quite bad. Sadar, like Robert Zadar, if you happen to like good B movies. Sadar. That's the only one. So of the 4 characters, that's the only one that's not a wizard. And they have to have the rituals. All the other ones do, of course. They get a free elemental rights. It's a combat or out of combat action. So you get a free action of this. And then you also get your normal action, whatever it's going to be, spell casting or anything else that you're going to do if you decide to duel anyone, anything like that. And what you do with this action is you go to your list of rituals. So every one of your characters has certain rituals that they're allowed to do. What you start with is grab one of those rituals, set it aside, and now that is an active ritual that is being worked on. We're going to see a bit more of how this works, but essentially you're going to choose one. Once their activation is done, from then on out, anytime a command card is drawn during the draw command card step, when it's a friendly regiment or character, your active rituals get a ritual marker. Notice it doesn't have to be the regiment they're in. It doesn't have to be them themselves or anything like that. Essentially, every time you draw a friendly activation card that's a regiment or a character, put one ritual marker on all of your current rituals that are in the works. The ones that are in the works are the ones that your characters have done. Later, when a friendly character stand performs, or lastly they put it, an elemental rights action, instead of starting a new ritual, you may add 2 ritual markers to one of the friendly rituals that are out there. And it can be one of the ones that you previously did as well. Could be one of the other characters in your army or your own. One thing you're going to notice, and I paused it for a moment there to reread to check this. One thing that you're going to notice, they don't say anywhere that a character can only have one ritual. What they say is that every ritual game-wide can only be actively being worked on at one time. So you can't double up on the same ritual between two different characters that could do the same ritual. In essence, what you want to do, you create two zones or three zones. You have your active card stack. You have your essentially in the game cards and out of game cards. You're going to take the ritual you want from out of game and put it in game and put it off to the side. Boom, start accumulating markers. At the end of that draw command step, so when you draw a command card in the future, boom, put down some ritual markers. If you now have enough markers, that is going to go sit next to your discard pile of your command stack. And the next turn, it goes in like any other command card would. It doesn't add any other additions that it wouldn't normally, so you don't get any more reinforcements or anything like that. And it does count as a card, so now your stack is taller. Maybe you end up going, losing that +1 or -1 to the initiative roll. It says put here, only one character stand may be accumulating ritual markers for the same ritual at any given time, and only for rituals whose command cards are currently outside of the game. So, if it's in your command stack, it's inside your play area. You can't take another copy of it in until that one has been used. So, when you draw that command card, you'll do the ritual. That will now leave play. It is now freely available for someone to start it all over again. One thing to realize, when you draw that command card, if it's a ritual, you'll do the ritual, but then you've drawn a command card. Your activation is now ended. Once it's done, your activation is ended, your opponent goes. So you are getting an ability. However, what you're giving up is a regiment or character activation for it. Now, you'll still get them later, but timing these things does mean that you are then going to potentially be a little bit behind on when you want units to go and all of that. So when you do accumulate, you don't have a choice here. All friendly characters to, let me take a look at this. Yeah, as part of a friendly regiment, all friendly character stands performing these elemental rites accumulate 1 for their selected ritual or rituals. Notice it doesn't say choose. It doesn't say you don't have to get it, which means if you suddenly accumulate and get to the total you want in a turn that you don't want the card to go off next round, too bad. It doesn't currently give you an option of delaying that, which means now that card has to go into your stack. Now your stack is getting taller, and you might find, oh, well, I need this ritual to go off before this unit goes off, but I really can't necessarily wait on that unit because of what the opponent's going to do and all of that. This is just adds one of those bit of extra complications you have to think about. I think about it very similar to the way the Wadroon work. With the Wadroon, you have to think about when you're stacking your cards because you're getting other bonus cards that are giving you abilities from it. When you start putting some of these down, you do have to consider what round will it go off. So if I have a character that's about to do, let's just take one for a very simple, for instance, Fiery Dominion. That's one of the rituals that the Marjar can do. So, all right, Fiery Dominion, I'll tell you right now, it takes 12 markers. Let's just make our number simple. Let's say an 8 activation list. That means it's going to be a turn and a half before you can put it in. Now remember, your characters, instead of starting a new one, they could put 2 ritual markers on, so maybe you could speed it up, but let's just keep the math simple for a second. All right, so that means the turn I play the card, the following turn it'll come into my discard pile. Turn after it, it'll go off if I don't manipulate in any other way. And they do mention that if your character stand that they're in, the regiment they're in breaks or is destroyed, that ritual goes away. So if the regiment the character stand is currently attached to becomes broken, or the character stand is destroyed or removed, it loses all of its ritual markings for that ritual and ceases accumulating ritual markers for the ritual. Once it's in your stack, that's another story, but when it's on the table, goes away otherwise. But I know essentially in 2 turns I'll get this ability. All right, maybe that's not when I want it. Maybe it's at a position where I want it either earlier or maybe I want it later. Maybe I realized suddenly, oh, you know what? One more turn would be better because my opponent was a little bit slower to move forward than I wanted. And to be able to get the most out of this, I need them within, say, 12 inches. Again, I'm not worried about what this one does, or we're not worried about what they do for the moment. So timing can be an issue here. Now, you can speed it up with your other characters if they don't want to be doing extras themselves, or you can just get more and more rituals out. You could also be using some of these rituals as delay tactics. A very common thing that I do, and I know other people do as well, is that your character stands, okay, most of your character stands here are wizards, so they might have some cool stuff to do. But oftentimes, your character stands can be used to delay, so that way your regiments get to go later when the opponent has done something. Some of these just affect either board wide or hand out some rules and all. So some of them might be able to go early in your stack to be able to let you delay a little bit more longer with your regiments to then be able to do something with it. So I think this is going to actually end up being, overall, the rule's pretty simple. Your characters can put cards into play. Every time someone goes, start stacking on top of them. When the character themselves go, either make a new card or double stack onto a card. And as these cards start popping off, put them to your discard pile. Following turn, they're in the deck. I think the nuance is going to be, when are you doing this? Which rituals do you want? Do you delay starting a ritual in a round because you really don't want it for several rounds? I do think that idea of, since you get this as a freebie, the impetus is always, well, I should always just have extra rituals going. Sometimes the ritual you want, it might be worth waiting around to start it because of when it should go off. You might not be able to get any advantage out of it then. And then you're going to be looking at, say, another 2 turns before it can show up again. This is only a 10-turn game. And some of these rituals require 8, 9, 12, like we said. That means if you're very early in the game, it's going to take quite a while. And a little later in the game, it's going to take a couple rounds. If it's already, say, turn 5, some of those you're only going to be able to get off, say, twice more. Turn 7's maybe turn 9/10. So timing is very big here. I'm curious to see in this army. I haven't built some weird list yet. I'm curious to see, is this the type of army that's want to go a lot more character heavy? Do we want to go like, more MSU, multiple small units, good amount of characters to really push the rituals I want, or just get tons of rituals going? I'm not sure yet. I'm curious of all that. The other big special rule is Sorcerer's Patronage. If you are spells from Court of Fire, you may take Efreet Flamecasters or Efreet Sword Dancers as mainstay. If you're going Court of Air, you may take Windborne Djinn and Steelheart Djinn as mainstay. You also get one of your regular stands as an extra, as a 5th. It's the Rajkor and the Norovian. I don't know, I'll probably be pronouncing it different next time. But you get one of those, those guys are archers, as a regiment. So in other words, you may now take 5. They don't have to be the 5th one. You can just take them in addition. And they are mainstay, so they can unlock additional restricted choices for you. But you may actually have 5 stands per each. 5 regiments per each, not 5 stands. My apologies, 5 regiments. All right. I'm going to be skipping some of the units because, like I said, this video is more about those particular things that we've been talking about. And there's a lot of different pieces, but I think it adds a little bit too much. And like I said, for this one, I just want to talk rituals. I want to give us a basis of, when we talk about these units, the sorts of things to keep in mind that they can do. There are 2 main schools. There's the Court of Fire and the Court of Air rituals. Each of your characters gets different ones. So when we talk about the characters, we'll talk a little bit about more which ones they do. Some of them in particular, I believe Sif is only, the Raj gets that. That one doesn't get it. Does the Sorcerer. Yeah, so 2 of them do. Whereas I think like Farsight is on the Sorcerer. I think that's it. Yeah, so some of them, like Farsight's only on Sorcerers. So you don't get access to it unless you take a Sorcerer. So I do want to talk through some of these. This is obviously where the strength of the army lies. There could be a few other pieces. But this is one of the big parts of the strength of the army. So Court of Fire rituals, we'll go through that first. Intrusive Thoughts, 10 markers. So if your character's doubling up, it goes a little faster. But otherwise, you're going to have to go through 10 activations after this thing goes down before you get it. This one goes on an enemy. They have to be within 12 of a friendly character stand. That's a wizard. So anything but a Sidar. And they gain Bloodlust. Keep in mind what Bloodlust does. Bloodlust is that when you're going to do an action, pause briefly to pull up Bloodlust so we can go through this to make sure what this does. If you are off the board, which you couldn't have targeted them naturally with Bloodlust, that means you can charge the turn you come in, but that won't matter because they had to be on the board first. If you're on the battlefield and you take an action, if the regiment is not in contact with an enemy, you roll d6. If it's less than or equal to your highest resolve, you can do what you want. Otherwise, you are allowed to automatically pass. Oh, sorry. The roll is not affected by special rules that let you automatically pass. In other words, you have to roll. If it's higher, you have to charge against the closest enemy in line of sight. They have to be within charge distance as well. If you fail that, if no enemy is eligible to charge, you have to perform a march directly towards the closest enemy. If no one's in line of sight, you have to go towards the opponent's reinforcement zone. So you always have to march your maximum when you do this. So if we think of uses for this thing, let's say you look at, there's quite a few units out there that have like resolves of 2. Let's say you target a resolve 2 unit, and let's say they're at, say, their max charge range or that side of the charge range. Let's say they're sitting on objective and you're off to a position. Notice for yours, they have to be within 12 inches. They don't have to be in line of sight. So you don't have to be able to see them. You just have to be close enough. But I put it on them. They roll their die for the resolve. They fail it. They might have to charge someone, which if they don't have unstoppable, maybe they're at the max distance. Maybe then they need a 6. Not very likely. Or they don't see me, and now they have to start pushing forward. They used to be on objective. They have to march the maximum. They're now off the objective. They now go for their second action, and maybe now they're in a charge range of someone. Or again, if they're not, they might have to move towards someone else, or move towards a unit that they now have line of sight to, or anything like that. So intrusive thoughts, you do have to be very clever with what you do. There's armies where this is going to be reasonably bad. If you're going against, say, Dweghome, their resolves tend to be pretty good. Spires is hit and miss. Some of the units are very low resolve. Some of them are very, very good. Doesn't help as much. This doesn't work at all against Old Dominion. Old Dominion don't have a resolve stat. We automatically pass any test related to resolve that we ever need to do. So if you're playing Old Dominion, play your other rituals instead. Though what I will say, putting this ritual out, though it may not do much for you, it is a delay tactic, like we said. So you could use it to get another one out there to be able to slow down when your stack activates with the good stuff. But there is definitely armies where this is actually quite good. I'm thinking 100 Kingdoms. They tend to be a bit lower resolve. Wadrum tend to be pretty decent. City-states, okay. It's far from a guarantee, but you can target very specific units, or, like I said, put it on the ones grabbing objectives, or in a spot where they really want to hold to be able to pull them out. Pull them forward so that way your units can then charge them instead. Incite Rage. Again, this goes against an enemy. You target an enemy regiment within 12 inches of a friendly character that is a wizard, so within 12 inches of one of your wizard units, or something that has a wizard. It has to still be one of your characters. So again, anything but the Sidar. Friendly regiments charging the target regiment gain shock. So shock is +1 to your clash. And specifically, shock happens before impact. So Inspire doesn't help your impact because Inspire is your clash after your impacts are done. Shock does. Because shock just changes your characteristic, where Inspired gives you a +1. There's a bit of a distinction there. Pretty much everything in this army outside of your infantry units has some amount of impact. And most of them are on Clash 2/3s. So now you're getting a lot more impact, especially when you take a look at your giant monsters. So Incite Rage, pick the unit that you want to be multi-charging. You want to use this when you plan to multi-charge. You could use obviously for only one. But what this is really good is if you have some of your Ifrits, maybe one of your giant monsters all set up and ready to charge, you're getting these extra bonus. Also keep in mind, shock is not Inspire. So you get +1 to your clash, and then you charged, you also get +1 on the attacks. So you could use this also for things, like I said, your infantry units, because Inspire and shock do both join. So now some of your units that are reasonably low stats become plus twos. Now your twos become fours. That's really, really good. I see this as great for your models because you do have quite a bit of impact. But for everything else, like your ghouls are on Clash 1. Just looking at a unit. They're on Clash 1. They're unstoppable. They're Vanguard. They're Bloodlust. They are coming at you kind of things. But now they're on 3s. On 3s is now 50%. That's a lot better. You're actually getting something through. Vouch Cur are on 2s, puts them to 4s. You're taking units that are kind of middling with their stats. And you'll notice when we talk about the units, a lot of them are a little bit kind of underwhelming stat-wise. I think at least. Because they have a lot of good bonuses. I said when you take a layer of Flamecasters, they're on 2s, they now go to 4s, and their impacts now we're hitting on 3s. And obviously some of the other units. So really, really strong. Conflagration. Sorry. Friendly Regiment or Character Stand, that's a wizard, may immediately perform a free out-of-sequence spellcasting action. You count as having had made 4 successes, which 4 successes is enough to have something go off, or if you're targeting an enemy, it's enough to get most of what you would need, especially with maybe some of these at scale. You get an extra spellcasting. You do it immediately. And be aware, this army has Court of Air and Court of Fire. Court of Air means the same exact thing. If you're a court as a unit, which all of your non-infantry units are automatically a court of something. I think one of the monsters isn't, but everyone else is. And your characters count as a court, and the regiment they're with count as the court. I believe that's true of all of them. I think that's even true of the Sidar. I know it's true of all the others. Is it true of the Sidar? No, the Sidar doesn't do that, but that makes sense because that one's not a wizard, but all the rest do. So most of your units, or maybe I should say, most I think is fine. Most of your units that I would see you're taking are going to have a court. If you're targeted by a spell of your appropriate court, heal 2 wounds. So this is an extra potentially 2 wound heal or automatic 2 wound heal because 4 is enough to get success. This is an extra spell of whatever type you need. Spells in the game are quite strong, so being able to do an extra thing is actually very, very good. Getting those 4 successes, if we just take a quick look at, say, some of the spells, you'll notice a lot of them are scaling. You could add some distances, maybe to the unit that's about to charge next. You could cause lightning bolt. You could get some extra hits on some people. Burning cinders. You can get some extra hits when someone else goes. Hey, they don't get their resolve event, their draw events. I know they're about to go because I can tell what's going to happen. You get quite a bit of good things. So, and that's not even looking at their special spells and things like that. So the goodness of that one is going to show up when we talk about spells, but hopefully it's obvious in an army that's about spellcasters. Being able to do more spells is great. Fire Dominion, the one we talked about, the next 2 enemy regiments that have their cards drawn don't get their draw events. Notice it specifically does say regiments, so if they do characters, those don't count. Again, this is a little hit and miss, depends on the army you're playing against, but some armies do tons of draw events. Keep in mind, say as an old Dominion player, at higher levels of my tier, my memories of old become draw events. I don't get them that way anymore. There's other armies where a lot of times your increases in, say, your impact or your charge abilities, all those sort of things, your phalanx, all those special rules come from draw events. This is a very expensive one, takes 12 to go off, and this is one I think you really want to time. This is one where not only do you want to time the round it happens, because at 12 you're not going to get it as much. You really want to time where it happens in your stack. So you're going to have to kind of pay attention with this of what has your opponent been doing? When do they really need certain things to happen? If knowing their army, they have much more, say, defensive draw events, they might be trying to go with them early. Or, I know they're out of range. They want it near the end. Say, when I look at, again, I was playing Spires the other day. My Biomancer is going to make, say, someone medium. Then they're going to do some things. They'll have their draws. I might want this early to shut down the sort of Alpha Strike. Or I might be able to wait on this one a little bit. I might be able to wait till about the middle because I know what they're going to do first is, have their like cav option take their turn inconsequential. They'll have some of the characters go. Not this will count for that. They're then going to have their backfield objective holder go because they're waiting for me to reposition, or they're going to bring in some of their units from, say, reserves to then delay for the big hit later. So I might want to wait on this one a little bit. This card is going to, this particular ritual, I should say, is a make or break if you can predict when your opponent's going to want to do something big that matters to you. Pay special attention, since it'll be multiple rounds before this comes out. What sort of order is your opponent tending to do things in? Do they tend to try to stack early to hit you hard? Or are they set up to hit you hard? Or do they tend to slow play a little bit more? Do they tend to try to do the big things near the end so that way they can kind of capitalize on gaining objectives or anything like that? What type of draw events do they have? Do their draw events tend to, say, give them more maneuverability? Where, okay, maybe they're a little bit more worried about later. Do their draw events mean they get to hit you harder? And are you currently in ranges for them to be hit? If you're not, you might be able to wait. If you are, it might be the first card you want to go with. So I think there'll be games where this is absolutely disruptive in every way, and other games where you stop my draw event on the guy who's sitting on the back, scoring me 2 points on the objective, and it didn't matter what he did. So I think you have to be very crafty with this one. Court of Air, let's take a look at the other court. So for that one, I know the Marjadine can do it. Who else takes it? Is it just that one? Probably. Let me see if anyone else can take it. I have the app also on my phone. Cannot take it. Oop, my apologies. Accidentally closed out of the app. And the Sorcerer. Nope. It's the only one who takes it. So that's something you got to think about. Oh, that sound was the other video being done if you heard that. Court of Air, Farsight. Takes 12 to get it to go off. So again, something that's not going to happen very often. Farsight is Sorcerer and... is it just Sorcerer? Yeah, just Sorcerer. So again, only one thing. Remember, if you have more Sorcerers, you can still only have one of these cards around at a time anyway. Farsight takes 12. Draw the next 3 command cards from your command stack. Put them on top of your command stack in any order. Draw and activate your next command card. Keep in mind, rituals are an activation. So I go with my ritual, I do a thing. Boom, done. Now it's your turn. Here's, I get to rearrange my top 3 cards, and then I get to go with the next card. Also keep in mind, they don't tell you here that it can't trigger additional draws, which means if you draw a character, you do their thing, then you may draw the command card underneath, and if it's the regiment they're in, that regiment may activate. So you might be able to get some extra bonus regiment activations. This one I see a couple spots this can be very, very good. One, I think this is really good if you're in... I find Conquest truly starts happening in my mind about turn 4. Before that, it's a lot of positioning, a lot of jockeying, and a lot of preparation. Around turn 4 is where charges really start to happen, where points start getting taken, where regiments really start getting leveled. And what I usually try to stress people when they're playing this game is you have to consider, as you go through and figure out your activations, okay, let's say it's turn 4, I might win this roll or I might lose it. And I need to make sure I'm set up pretty well for both. If you really can only set for one direction, I usually tell people, set for losing the roll. Oh, I have my cav unit here ready to go, and if I win this roll, they're going to rush in to my opponent's force, and they're going to decimate that unit, and then, wherever else happens from there. But if my opponent goes first, then that cav unit's stuck in, and these are, order knights who are really only good on the charge because they have brutal impact and all these brutal impact and all these impact hits and all this stuff, which means, oh, now I'm stuck in, it doesn't really do me any good. We've all had that. I've had that with my Old Dominion. I watched it the other day with some 100 Kingdom stuff. We all have where if I get the turn, I need this card to go, and if I were to miss the roll to go first, I need this other unit to go instead. Here's your way to solve that. Try to time this to go into your stack around that turn when it really matters, and put this as your top card. Because then if you win or lose, put in the top cards underneath of it, I wanted to go first, and I ended up going second cards. because then you can rearrange them appropriately. So to me, this is an insurance card to make sure that start of the round, in those rounds where it really matters, start of that round, I get an appropriate order. You've already charged my Cav. Okay, Cav are going later. I'll now go with this other unit that was going to charge somewhere else, because I would say set up for a double charge. Miss one charge, get to do the other, rather than you getting both of them at me. So I think you have to really time this. If you're not doing the early round stuff, then you could put this a little bit later into the deck. That spot where you really don't know what's going to happen. Oh, this unit should probably go like my third regiment to go. But if they don't move into range, then I'm not going to be in range to charge and all of that. Put this card ahead of it then. Push them further down. Push them 3 down. You'll get 2 more activations later. You can delay a bit. So, safe. The next 2 friendly regiments that have their command cards drawn during this round gave the Opportunist special rule. So, Opportunist, because that is not one that I get. And I am terrible at spelling. Opportunist. Let's take a look. Opportunist. If you have this special rule, you reroll failed hit rolls when performing clash or volley against an enemy's flank or rear. Unbelievably situational. I'm at all points going to be trying to get most of these cards, but that's a card where I'm probably not going to work for early. I'm going to skip putting that card out early. Maybe later in the game, I will be trying to get that card, because maybe later in the game, I can get into those flanks and rears. For this, that is just the Sorcerer, I believe, who takes that one. Yes. So you better have a Sorcerer as well for this one. I'm not that impressed. I think you can still do good stuff with it. I think some armies this will work well in, but other ones, you're just going to have a hard time getting into the flanks and rear for them. If you can get it, that's great, but it's going to be tougher to get. And you have to time it with the 2 regiments that can do it as well. So if those regiments aren't going to get into the flank or rear, or a different one does, it's kind of spoiled. So I think you have to be really careful with that one. That one's going to be harder to use. Spiteful Winds. Enemy regiment within 12 inches of a character that's a wizard, so not your Zadar. Its charge distance becomes its move value plus 2. So let's assume they're a move 5. Their charge distance is now 7. They're a flat 2. They don't add the d6. So you're greatly shortening their charge. The opponent was just about to hit you. They have a unit that has rerolling charges, Indomitable or Unstoppable. My apologies. Unstoppable, or maybe some other reason. We just took a look at some other options that people had. Now they're not going to make it. They were rerolling and they were sitting on 3s to get a charge. Well, now it's just the March plus 2. They can't roll 3. So this is actually, I think, really, really good. Again, this really depends on timing. 12 inches does mean that the unit had to essentially be in charge range. So you're now taking someone who's in charge range. If they're more than their move plus 2 away, they will fail the charge. You have now ruined their entire activation potentially. Or maybe they have to do a move and then a charge. They're not getting the free swings at you. Well, not free swings. It's an action, but they're not getting swings at you. So I do think that one is very, very good. Super situational. This is probably a card that I would have go first in my round when I'm ready. If I'm worried about charges on me at all, I'll just have it go first. Otherwise, if I'm not quite so worried about charges, maybe I have it go a little bit later after a unit of mine has moved, but knowing that it's the sort of setup that the opponent's going to want to wait on. Sometimes we know that I want to wait on this charge because you're in a good spot to countercharge me, so I'm kind of waiting for some other pieces of yours to go. Well, I'll cast this. Now you won't be able to charge me if you're further than that distance away. So, all right. So from these, as I safe, I think is really situational. I don't think it can be great, but I think it's super situational. For the ones I like the most, Fiery Dominion, I think is absolutely great, and Spiteful Winds. Anything that lets me control my opponent is really good. Intrusive Thoughts, I think, can be good, but the army you go against, it could be really bad. Pretty much everyone has draw events. Draw events are very, very common. Pretty much everyone wants to charge. Your base move plus 2, lowering your charge for everyone is good. As Intrusive Thoughts can be good, but if they happen to have really good resolve, might not happen. That Incite Rage, really good, but if you can't stack up the turn when multiple stuff wants to get in, not quite as good. Conflagration, also very good. So those are the main two ones I really like. I'm interested to see once these guys come out how often you really can get some of these going on. Can I get these going on a consistent enough basis? I am not one of the people who thinks this is going to break the game, nor do I think it's bad. I do think it's good. I don't know how strong it's going to be until we really start playing it out, trying it out, and I'm really looking forward to doing that. This is an army I think I'm might end up trying out. And especially with that, with some online support, there's some online options to be able to play. So I think I do want to try all those out. All right. So what I want to hear from you guys is I want to hear what you think. What do you think was the best of the rituals we looked at? How strong do you think this army is going to be just off these rituals? Like I said, we are going to take a look at the units, but realistically, I thought we should start here. Now, when we talk about the units, we can talk about the things that they can do, the things that they have, and what sort of either bonuses we can give them or the abilities we have, especially when we think of conflagration, where I can cast a spell. If I'm casting an extra spell on my unit, then the unit's doing something. All of that kind of stuff matters. So I don't know if there's a great way to start this. This is the way I chose to start it because I do think it's a pretty good and decent way to do this. So you will be seeing some other videos pretty soon. I'm off next week. As of time of recording, it is March 13th currently. I'm off next week, which means I have plenty of time. I can record some stuff. I'm going to get through all the rest of this. I'm probably going to do spells. I'll probably do leaders and maybe spells in the same one. I don't know if I'm going to do them together. And then just general units. So by the time that's done, we'll have gone through everything. All that will be out with plenty of time before this faction drops. So if you're either wanting to play this faction, maybe now you have some ideas related to it. Or if you know this is a faction you're going to have to play against, I want to be able to give you some tips and tricks to be able to fight against them as well. If you have any particular thoughts, hey, we got comments below. Please leave some comments, leave some thoughts that you have. Are you looking forward to facing them? Are you looking forward to playing them? Or are you not looking forward to it in either way? If you have particular lists of these that you're interested in, I do want to do a list building episode as well, or a list building segment on one of these to talk about current lists and what I think is missing from it, what we want to see, and all of that. Leave some of those below. You can always put in some of your list ideas. So let's see what we can talk about for these very new and cool things coming out. All right, like I said, if you're picking this up or anything else, we have in the show notes a discount code, save yourself 10%, be able to get an army for 10% less. That's really, really nice. All right. Having said all that then, on behalf of everyone here at the show, has a good hobby, is a great gaming.